Okay, hello everybody. Hello. Welcome back. Second show today. And just wanted to say hello to everyone. We're going to wait for Jack to come in. He'll be in here shortly. Hope everyone is doing really well. I don't know how many times and how long I can actually say, but Happy New Year. And I'm really looking forward to the show with Jack, and I'm so appreciative that he accepted to come on and talk because a lot of times I'll mention things about China is buying up our land and it's all around our military bases. What's going on? Well, I think I've got the perfect guy to explain it, and I'm going to bring him in right now.
Hello. Hey, what's going on, Janine? How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. Like I was just saying, I'm not sure how long we can keep saying Happy New Year, but I want to say Happy New Year to you. You look great. How are you?
Thanks. I'm good. You look great too. Yeah, Happy New Year. Thanks for having me on. It's been a while, and I appreciate the invite. So looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah. I'm just, I try to find the experts out there. When it comes to history, you're the first name comes to my mind because
thanks.
You due diligence. You've been studying history for so long, and one of the things that I think I was getting confused whether it was Fort Braggs or Fort Briggs. I don't know if they're one and the same, but maybe you could kind of clarify this for me.
Well, you got Fort Bragg. That's in North Carolina. It's right outside Fayetteville. That's the largest military base in the world as far as personnel, not size, but personnel. Then you have Fort Benning. That's down in Georgia. That's where Army does most of its training. And it's where the 3rd Battalion, that's where the Ranger Regiment, that's headquarters, and the 3rd Battalion's there, and the Ranger Reconnaissance Regiment's there as well. So
if I was going to say, if I asked this question, would I be out of line by saying, I was thinking that with all this MK Ultra going on in one of the military bases, is that the one that's in North Carolina or California?
Yeah, that would be in North Carolina, Fort Bragg. Okay. That's where the I can't remember the whole name. It's basically, I think it's the 4th psychological group and of the Army, and that's where all the psychological warfare has come out of there. It's there's obviously other psychological warfare units, but that's the main one. That one's been around forever. So yeah, they're going to be doing things like MK Ultra, stuff like that, to be going through that group. Surprisingly, Obama renamed it for some reason, and then Trump renamed it back. Well, you rename something so people don't know what it is. I can't remember what the name they came up with, but
Trump was it Liberty? Was it the Liberty?
That's the name of the actual psychological group. They changed, yeah. But they did change Fort Bragg to Fort Liberty. So, and they changed all those, it's mostly Southern bases to different names.
Okay. So, like I said, I was doing a story and I was just thinking, boy, all these guys that were being tied to New Orleans, anything that just seemed like it was nefarious, were all coming out of some military. And I guess, you could take this show any way that you want to, but I really want to get answers. And it seems like we don't get answers. We only hear about what they've done to traumatize us and kill us, but we never get any answers.
Yeah, no, inches, people talk a lot, but there haven't been a lot of explanations, that's for sure. But yeah, I think what you're seeing now, sorry, I figure out where I'm, obviously the wildfires out in California, devastating. You also have a major cold front that's hit, especially the Midwest. I mean, temperatures are going to keep dropping, and they're going to get down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh.
Yeah, it's going to be coming next couple of days. So you're going to look at just a huge trough coming through. Even down in Georgia, I think it's going to get down to like 12 degrees, stuff like that.
Well, I'm down by the Gulf of America, and we've got 30 degrees, and this is cold for us. And I've been here 2 years. I'm wearing a coat in the house, and the temperature's turned up. But I mean, it's 30 degrees. There's no snow here or anything like that, but it gets down to the 20s. So what the hell's going on?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you guys remember that fog that seemed to be hitting everywhere last week.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was pretty much all over the United States. It was all over England. It was all over Germany, Switzerland. I mean, it was everywhere. And that's most likely weather warfare. So there was a great guy. He passed away, but a guy named Mike Morales.
And he used to have a YouTube channel. He was a meteorologist at one
Yeah.
of those channels. Yeah.
I love that guy.
Yeah, I think he passed away, unfortunately. But he was the guy who
Cancer
explained.
hit the whole family. Do you think he was taken out?
I don't know. I hope not. If he is gone, hopefully it was, hopefully natural, but you don't want to see a guy like that pass away, or hopefully they moved him into someplace safe. Either way, he was a guy who really exposed all of the spraying operations, things like that. And he would show you how they do it, and he would show you in real time. Like they'd spray off of, what they would do is they get these huge ships that would run between basically Hawaii and Alaska. And they burned something. They knew about this fuel for about 20 years. It's called bunker fuel. Now, when they refine oil and gas from, the sludge of oil, gasoline is almost clear. I mean, it almost looks like water. So refining all of that stuff down, you have to get rid of that black sludge. That's where all the impurities are. That's where all the metals, everything is. And they call it bunker fuel because they put it on these huge container ships, and that's what they burn once they get into international waters. It's the dirtiest fuel. But what Morales was saying is that what they'll do is they will run these huge ships between, I know it sounds crazy, but Hawaii and Alaska, and they'll burn bunker fuel. It gets all those, metals that are contained in bunker fuel, and it just pollutes the air, and then it moves over, and they're able to move it that way. Do you remember a couple of years ago when Texas got a huge deep freeze and all the wind turbines froze and, people died? He predicted that about 10 or 14 days before it happened.
Wow.
Yeah. So with all this fog, who knows? But now you're seeing this deep freeze across everywhere, and it's going to get worse. It wouldn't surprise me if some of the schools are shut down on Friday just because it's too cold to go outside, really. So if anybody's out there, just be prepared for, deep freeze. And it's going to be here for a bit. So, these are the type of things that somebody does at the end where they have no other weapons left. They've got to try and do something like these California fires, same type of idea.
But, you saw that Monday they certified the vote, and same day you had Trudeau resign. That's probably been the biggest indicator that, things are changing for the positive. That guy resigning, and those dominoes will fall. And I'll show you, how Trump has been talking about, Canada will be the 51st state and all this. And, it kind of raises question marks. Like, where does this come from? Well, it's been, my hypothesis for a long time that we're going back to our original document, which was the Articles of Confederation. And most people haven't read this. It was how our country is really a confederation. And here, I'll show you if I can share the screen up here. I don't know.
Yeah, so just go to the present and then do share screen.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
I kind of ran across a document somebody mentioned about this, and I'm glad that you're explaining this.
Oh, good. Yeah, so here's the Articles of Confederation. Most people haven't read of it. Most people have never heard of it. And I'll just kind of go over this a little bit. It was agreed to in Congress, and during this time, it was the United States and Congress assembled. It was agreed to November 15th, 1775. They didn't sign it until it was ratified by every state, which took until March 1st, 1781. But the first article is, the style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America. Right there. Now, a lot of people say that, the Constitution came in and replaced this document. It can't. Otherwise, the United States of America doesn't exist anymore. So, and there's a lot to this. But I'll get to Article 11, which is really what we're discussing right here. If we can get down here. Right here, and I believe this is what Trump is talking about. Article 11. Canada, acceding to this confederation and adjoining in the measures of the United States. See how that's not capitalized?
Yeah.
Yeah, that means it's not like the United States. When United is capitalized, that's your corporation. What this is indicating is these states here, they're united in the Confederacy. Okay.
So Canada, acceding to this confederation and adjoining in the measures of the United States, shall be admitted into and entitled to all the advantages of this union. But no other colony shall be admitted into the same unless such admission be agreed to by 9 states. Well, right there, Canada already has a free pass to join. All they have to do is agree to the articles and what goes with them, and they're in as a 51st state. And that's what he's talking about. And that's been my supposition for a long time, is that the Constitution is a series, it's a form of government and a series of laws that are under the Articles of Confederation. And so the Articles of Confederation can't be replaced. It's the foundation for our confederacy, of our grouping of states. That, and I'll just go to the second article because this is eminently important. Right here.
Oops, let me put that up.
Okay, is it there? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I'm just on the page I'm looking at. So let me see. Okay, perfect. Yeah. All right. So Article 2. Now this is key. And now when you're looking at the Civil War, things will look a little different. I mean, not really, but a little bit. Article 2, each state retains its sovereignty, freedom, and independence, and every power, jurisdiction, and right, which is not by this confederation expressly delegated to the United States in Congress assembled. Therefore, what they're talking about here is every state is its own independent country. So they deal with their own court system. They have their own state constitutions, which they did. And if you ever go back and read the original state constitutions, it's totally different than anything that you've read. And so when you get to the Civil War, that's what those guys were complaining about, saying, hey, our state laws are not overridden by your federal laws. And that was really the concern. And that was one of the biggest, that was really the problem, was they wanted these federal laws to come in. And the southern states are saying, hey, if you want a federal law, that's an amendment to the Constitution. You can't just go off and make these crazy laws. So that's really important. That now, if you look at all the Supreme Court decisions, right, of late, look at the Roe versus Wade decision.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't outlaw abortion because that's not what it was deciding, but it kicked everything back to the states. Then you look at, there was a case called the National Pork Producers versus California. And I got this wrong in the beginning. And then once the decision came down, I read it, I understood it more. California, the state legislature said, here, if you're going to sell pork products in California, you have to have a pen for each, pig or hog or whatever. And it has to have these certain dimensions, so they're not like jammed in together. The National Pork Producers said, that's not right. Like if I'm growing a pig in Iowa, I go to Iowa's laws. If I'm raising pigs in Nebraska, I don't have to follow California's laws. That's a violation of the Interstate Commerce Clause, which that's a whole other thing. But the Supreme Court ruled with California because they said, hey, this state gets to decide what laws they want to make for their people. Now, the people in Iowa, the pig farms, you can decide if you want to sell pork products in California or not. But if you do, you have to follow their laws. And that's giving power back to states. If you ever want to read the best state constitution, I think it's only had like 3 or 5 amendments to its state constitution since it was instituted in 1784. Read New Hampshire State Constitution, because Jefferson wrote it. And once you read that document, you see how the government is set up. To give you an idea, New Hampshire is the only state left, just one. Because in the 30s, FDR came up with this national historical landmarks and sites and everything. And if you agreed to be a national historic landmark, then the federal government got jurisdiction over your land. Now they pay for the upkeep and everything. Now think about when he did this in 1935. Everybody was broke. So every state house is on federal land. That's why you'll see the gold fringe around the American flag, except for New Hampshire. Even though they're the second oldest state house in the country, they're not in the National Historic Landmark. No. Yeah. So when you read New Hampshire state constitution, a lot of things, that's really freedom. And the federal government can't, that's why they have no seatbelt law in New Hampshire. You don't have to wear a helmet if you're riding a bike. You don't even have to have car insurance if you live in New Hampshire. Now you have to prove that, you're a member of the community in good standing, but you don't have to have car insurance. And so people say, Texas, Florida. Like, no, New Hampshire. And Jefferson set it up that way. He also set up the legislature. And New Hampshire has about 1.4 million people. In their House of Representatives, guess how many are there? How many representatives have for the state house in New Hampshire? They have 400 just in their state house. So to give you an idea of scale, that's 1.4 million people in New Hampshire. Their state house has 400 members. United States of America has about 330 million people. In our House of Representatives, we have 435. So New Hampshire is the best represented people on earth. That's why it never goes left, it never goes right. And the left stuff is because they've been stuff in the ballot box and all that. Jefferson set all that up. Now, the annual pay for somebody who's in the state house in New Hampshire is $250 a year. It's basically a volunteer job. And that's what they wanted it. So, when we look at what's going on today, we have to go way back to the old documents and say, hey, what did they set up? Why did they set it up this way? And, can we
How did they
return
get away with it, though?
Who, New Hampshire?
Well, not New Hampshire, like all the other states. I mean, did they find loopholes? This might sound like a silly question, but those articles actually do exist under the Constitution. Were they trying, and we didn't know it? Were we not smart enough to know what they were doing at each individual state level?
Yeah, well, it's the opposite. The Constitution is below the articles.
Okay.
It's why they don't teach it. And it's actually twofold, I think, because people, people don't want, there you go, Lori. No tax in New Hampshire, no income. And they just got rid of the rest of the taxes they had kind of, they still have, they have no sales tax, no income tax. They have property tax, which again, that's really bad. Hey, MJ Truther, good to see you. I'm just seeing these things pop up. So it's great. But when you look at it, right, it's like, okay, you have to remember what federal land is, right? Outside the original 13 states, except for Vermont, that's a little different. It's all federal land, all of it. So being able to manipulate things very quickly, because the articles, the articles were in effect March 1st, 1781. Constitution went into effect on March 4th, 1789. So there wasn't that big of a window there. But there's a very strange thing about the Articles of Confederation. Now, Jefferson probably wrote most of it. It was detailed to a guy named John Dickinson, but he ended up leaving the Congress. And Jefferson's footprints are all over the Articles. And he most likely wrote that. Now, think of the Constitution, right? It was written by James Madison. He's the father of the Constitution. Now, when the Constitution went in, Jefferson was in France for 4 years, master plenipotentiary to set up treaties and everything. They set this up, the Constitution, when he was in Paris. Franklin was in Europe and Adams was in England. Well, Jefferson would have gone nuts because he hated federal government. Hated it. But when you read his, you read his autobiography, it has letters that, and he's like, yeah, this is okay, but it seems like this guy's a king. He hated the Supreme Court. But yeah, it's all right. What? Now, it's my hypothesis that not only did Jefferson write the Articles of Confederation, he also wrote the Constitution.
Hmm.
Because you look at Madison, right? So Madison, he writes it, and then you got
Alexander Hamilton, whatever. And they put this in.
Jefferson gets back, but then Madison is appointed to, I can't remember what his position was in Washington's cabinet there, whether it was Secretary of State. I don't think it was Secretary of State, but it was something major. And he gets in there, and all of a sudden he's agreeing with Jefferson against Hamilton and against Washington. And Washington's like, what's going on? Well, Madison was Thomas Jefferson's best friend. So if you know it's going to go federal, if you know that there are traitors and there are good people, but they're traitors and they're not going to give up. So what's the best way to ensure that you can pull the rug out from under them when you want? You write the document yourself. Then you get your best friend, James Madison, and then you head off to France, but you put certain things in, certain poison pills that a guy named Trump can use.
Mm-hmm.
So one of them is Article 2, Section 3, right? And that says if the Congress cannot, if the houses of Congress cannot agree on a time to adjourn, then the president can step in and adjourn both houses.
Oh.
Until he reconvenes them. And do you remember during COVID, like the House and Senate couldn't agree? Yeah, Trump just dismissed them.
Yeah, I'll bring that up because that's a pretty good one. Let's see here.
Let me just give a shout out to some of the people out on Rumble and anybody out there. I'm sure that a lot of you guys are familiar with Jack. If you want to say hi, please do so. And also a couple channels on YouTube.
Awesome. See if I can find this here.
So, so let's see here. I want to say hi to Kim Wheels out there while he is looking for this. Colleen, good to see you back again. And Mary Jean G. Divine Starseed.
Awesome. I love it.
That's great.
So here's Article 2, Section 3. And I'll explain a few more things with the Constitution and the Articles and why I think they're written at the same time and written most likely by Jefferson. Yeah, he passes it off to his best friend Hamilton. And remember, like the first plan with the Constitution was a Virginia plan. Oh, that's weird. Yeah. Where was Jefferson and Madison from? Virginia. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's one of those little poison pills I think old Tom put in there for old Trump to use. And we get to
Article 2, Section 3. He, and this means the president, it's Article 2 about the presidency. He shall, from time to time, give to Congress information on the state of the Union and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. Okay. He may, on extraordinary occasions, convene both houses or either of them. And in the case of disagreement between them with respect to the time of adjournment, he may adjourn them to such time as he shall think proper. And here's the other part of it. He shall receive ambassadors and other public ministers. He shall take care that the law be faithfully executed. He shall commission the officers of the United States. Basically, he can dismiss Congress and run the country by himself. But he has to make sure that the laws are followed that are on the books. That's it. And when you get to one of the amendments, I can't remember which one it is, that deals with, when Congress has to meet. It was FDR put, I think it was the 20th Amendment or 22nd Amendment. But Congress only has to meet one day a year. That's it.
just once. And that's on January 3rd. Is anybody else getting a status? You didn't hear that? Oh, I don't know. I don't know if you guys heard that static. What if he wants to give the State of the Union on the 19th? Well, he wouldn't be able to because technically he's not sworn in as president. But I'll go to that. I'll go to that amendment real quick, and I think it's the where are we? Table of contents. Where the hell did it go? Here we go. Okay. So we'll look at.
Sorry, Jack. I'm having technical difficulties over here with this internet. Can you hear me?
I got you now. Yeah, no picture, but I can hear you.
Okay. Well, we're gonna just leave you up there because I lost my camera.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry about that. It's probably me. They destroyed one of my computers on my live stream last year, so or it was just over a year ago. Yeah, it was fun. I'm like talking about something, and all of a sudden everything starts going. They fried my laptop.
Yeah, I seem to be getting that too. There we go. Hello, I'm back.
Nice, awesome.
Sorry about that. You were on a good thought train right there, and go ahead if you could pick it up where you left off.
Sure. So what we'll look at here is the Constitution, and this is something that was put in literally right when FDR came in, and it changed when the president and vice president and Congress were sworn in. It used to be the 3rd of March, March 4th. Then he changed it to, and this is the 20th Amendment, the terms of the president and vice president shall end at noon on the 20th day of January, and the terms of senators and representatives at noon on the 3rd day of January, and the rest of that doesn't really matter. And then right here, Section 2 of the 20th Amendment, the Congress shall assemble at least once in every year. And such meeting shall begin at noon on the 3rd day of January, unless they shall, by law, appoint a different day. Okay. And what that means is Congress has to meet on January 3rd, but that's the only day they have to meet. That's it, just once. They could just go home and not do anything. And Congresses over the years have not started on January 3rd because it says, hey, if they make a law and says, hey, we want to start on the 6th or the 7th, they have that flexibility, but they do have to meet at least once a year.
I thought that they had to meet to certify Trump because that's the only time that they were there. But I also don't think that was real. I think it was all AI.
Yeah, I think you got a lot of that going around for sure.
A lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. Okay. Here's something important, and for your viewers, they might not know this. And I'll share the screen again because it's so people can read along with the Constitution. And this is Article 2, Section 1. And it discusses the presidency, right? And at the end here, well, it says Congress may determine the time of choosing the electors and the day on which they shall give their votes, which day shall be the same throughout the United States. And that's your electoral college. Right here, no person except a natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible to the office of the president. Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who shall not have attained the age of 35 years and been 14 years a resident within the United States. Okay, so you kind of get the idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was Obama's problem, right? Not born here.
Yeah.
But an interesting side note is neither was John McCain.
Yeah.
So that whole sorry, go ahead.
Where was he born? It was the Panama Canal.
Yeah, exactly. He's born in Panama. And he's born in a Navy hospital, but a Navy hospital is not U.S. land. It might be a U.S. base, but it's not U.S. land. So at the 2008 election, you had two guys running for the presidency who were both ineligible for the presidency. That's a problem, and that's a story for another time. But right here, and again, when you're looking at the Constitution and the Articles of Confederation, just remember a couple of things. One, read exactly what it says, and that's difficult because this language is strange. And two, what it doesn't say. So right here, before he enter on the execution of his office, he shall take the following oath or affirmation. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I'll faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, right? It's short, it's quick, and that's why, because as we saw in the 20th Amendment, the power change has to happen at noon, directly at noon.
Mm-hmm.
And when you saw Obama fumble, remember Chief Justice Roberts fumbled the oath when Obama fumbled it? Yeah. He couldn't become the president of the United States because he wasn't born here. Chief Justice Roberts knew that. So did a lot of other people.
Didn't they do that the second time? So it's still null and void, right?
You got it. But the interesting thing is the vice president takes the same oath of office as the president just before the president takes it. Because if somehow the president dies right then or there, right after, you have that seamless transition of power. So Obama, he could be the president-elect, and that's in the Constitution. It's right there. But he can't be the president. So if he's ineligible, they kind of screw up the oath, or he takes it the next day in the green map room with only Chief Justice Roberts and a White House photographer with no Bible. No Bible? Oh. And then they screwed it up, in 2013 as well. So who would become the president of the United States? Joe Biden would be the acting president. So when Trump says Biden's the worst president ever, I don't think he's talking about the last 4 years. I think he's talking about the 8 where he was the acting president for Obama's term. And let's see here. Now this gets pretty weird, as you might imagine, if they're doing all this stuff. Let's see. Yeah, it's back to the 20th Amendment. But before we get that far, just remember what that 20th Amendment said, or that oath of office said. It doesn't say where the oath has to be taken. It doesn't say, hey, it's to be taken on D.C. on the Capitol steps. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say it has to be taken, So maybe on the 20th, Trump takes it somewhere else. He can. Maybe that happened in Mar-a-Lago.
Shit.
Yeah, he doesn't have to take the oath on Capitol. It doesn't say that. So what it says and then what it doesn't say, what they omit is what you have to really pay attention to.
I just got it. The light bulb just went on.
Yeah. So where are we? There. Now in this 20th Amendment, and this is where I think really played a big part, is Section 3. If at the time fixed for the beginning of the term of the president-elect shall have died, the vice president-elect shall become president. All right, makes sense. If a president shall not have been chosen before the time fixed for the beginning of his term, or if the president-elect shall have failed to qualify, then the vice president-elect shall act as president until a president shall have qualified.
Whoa.
That's where Obama screwing up the oath. Boom, Joe Biden becomes acting president under the 20th Amendment. And it doesn't say they have to tell anybody. It doesn't say, hey, you got to print this in every newspaper, like 3 newspapers in each big city. It doesn't say that. They don't have to tell anybody at all.
Jack, I got a silly ass question, but does our government know this? And do they know that he was, holy shit, talk about bamboozling the American people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And we didn't know any better. We bamboozled ourselves.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And so when you're looking at this, and you say, geez, Remember when Obama was elected? They created this office of the president-elect. Remember that? Like, what was that? Because he couldn't be the president, they had to give him his own office so he could still be kind of official. And it said, if the president-elect does not qualify. So Chief Justice Roberts sucks anyways, but
Yeah.
they knew this. He couldn't swear in somebody because he knew he did not qualify. Now, when you get all these guys, some of the guys in the military, they were questioning whether Obama was born here and they got in a lot of trouble. It wasn't because they were wrong, it's because they didn't know the Constitution, that Biden was the acting president. So they were following the letter of the law. And they were also following the fact that they don't have to tell anybody.
So you get the biggest, dumbest idiot out there that will listen to you, the biggest puppet, and he's going to keep his mouth shut because that's how he is.
Yep.
And holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, we most likely hit the debt ceiling. Now, the debt ceiling is, and we're very close to it, so pay attention to this in the next week. The debt ceiling is not something that is fungible. I mean, you can raise it, sure, but once you hit the debt ceiling, you're basically bankrupt. And we probably hit the debt ceiling in 2011.
Shit.
Yeah, at the end of it, right around November 15th, surprisingly. Now, what happened the next year? Well, that's when, for some reason, the Federal Reserve decided to do that quantitative easing forever. That's who's been paying all the bills.
Who's been paying it? Back it up. Say it again.
Well, when you look at it, right, the Federal Reserve did that quantitative easing, right, where they just, printed money and gave it to whoever. So if we hit the debt ceiling and they didn't raise it in time, then you are insolvent. And then in 2012, the Federal Reserve just said, here, we're going to just do quantitative easing, forever, to the tune of $80 billion plus a month. So that's who was funding all of the things, was the Federal Reserve, because the U.S. government was bankrupt. Now, we've heard a lot about, Hillary selling.
So if I could back it up just a couple of years, 2008, we had that housing bubble burst. And then we bailed out all of the corporations and the banks, but we didn't have any. So that was 2011 that we went bankrupt because we bailed out these corporations and banks.
And we started massive spending under Obama. Again, there's a lot of things going on. But do you remember they had like the Balanced Budget Act in the 90s? And we actually were running a budget surplus. Right, like under Clinton at the end. Then something changed in 99, 2000, 2001. A lot of things changed, and a lot of things behind the scenes changed. But we were running a budget surplus. They were constricted in how much money they could spend. But then Obama comes in and they spent the whole roof. I mean, they spent everything. Now, we've heard how Hillary Clinton was selling secrets and SAP level clearances and stuff like that. I don't know if you've heard that, but access to classified programs. Well, when you look at it, what if they just bankrupted the United States on purpose? So what happens when you go bankrupt? The creditors come in and they take what they want. So what if Hillary Clinton selling the SAP level clearance wasn't her selling it, but paying off her creditors, and that's how they did it.
Holy shit.
To transfer it technically lawfully.
So it was it like I hate to say this, was it like a chapter 7 or 11? How do these corporations file? I mean, is there ever a way to find that proof?
Yeah, it's tough.
And they probably buried it.
Oh, yeah, they would bury this under a ton. But if they're going to do all these nefarious things, they figured out a way. Hey, if we can hit the debt ceiling, all this stuff, and then we can start giving China or Israel or whoever our classified programs because they own our debt. They're our creditor. We can just say, here, we gave it to them because we went bankrupt and they asked for a property. and that's what they asked for. I mean, this is me just hypothesizing, but it does seem to make sense why they were never busted for this stuff.
Well, was it 2016 when they were throwing her ass into the van? Was that our military that said, we've had enough, you're done with her?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, and so if all along these guys were not really legitimate in running our country and we were bankrupt, so was the question here is, I hope I don't sound too stupid, was it the military that was actually in control going back to I don't know, whatever year, when Trump got in the first time?
I think that they've been in control of a lot of things, but and this is where things get really, really strange, and you got to put on a big tinfoil hat for stuff like this. Okay, Jimmy Carter, right? Everybody thinks he's the worst president, and Trump digs on this stuff. Jimmy Carter I think he's the key to all of this, and it really has to do with what he did after he left office. So Jimmy Carter, and he's being buried tomorrow, which is a little strange because it's 12 days after he died.
I know.
How does that?
Well, they had to play it out. There's so many other things going on, we had to see Pelosi fall, come in with her walker and shit.
Right. Yeah. And you look at it, right? Now, this is where things get very strange. And you have to go back to the Constitution. This is all tinfoil hat stuff. So just, don't take this as any type of fact, because it's just me speculating. But we'll go back to that section, right? And knowing that Obama and Hillary, they're all selling out all this stuff and they're doing horrible, nefarious things, right? Well, again, Section 3, right, that we just went over. If at the time fixed for the beginning of the term of the president-elect shall have died, vice president-elect shall become president. If a president-elect shall not have been chosen before the time fixed for the beginning of his term, or if the president-elect shall have failed to qualify, then the vice president-elect shall act as president, Joe Biden, until a president shall have qualified. So until a president shall have qualified, right?
Did he qualify?
Biden?
Yeah.
Well, no, because, he was only vice president. So he would have been acting president, but it says until a president shall have qualified. Jimmy Carter would have qualified to be president because he qualified and he was a president. He hadn't served 2 terms. So technically, what if Jimmy Carter stepped in 2015 and said, hey, and pushed him aside? And think about it. In 2015, Benjamin Netanyahu, the guy from Israel, he came and spoke before the joint session of Congress. You remember that?
Yeah, I do. I do. And I'm still processing the information on Jimmy Carter. You're right. He was a president. He was only a 1-term president. You can bring him in for another term legally.
Yep.
And yet, oh my God, this is a great hypothesis. And that explains why Trump will say what he says about Jimmy Carter, where the nefarious, all the deep state would always say how bad he was as president. You got to make him look bad. And if Trump did know the truth, wow.
Well, you would want these guys not to be friends. They couldn't be, because then people would dig and start to look.
Yeah.
So them going against each other, that would make a lot of sense. So if Jimmy Carter stepped in, right, Netanyahu comes in and addresses a joint session of Congress, which he can only be really invited by the president. Obama went nuts. I mean, absolutely bananas. He was so pissed because John Boehner, who was the Speaker of the House, right, he invited him.
Right.
What if it was Jimmy Carter who invited him?
Wasn't Bader the one that cried all the time?
He was. But here's another thing about Boehner, and we get into this later in the year. In August of that year, Jimmy Carter got brain cancer.
Oh,
right? Now,
yeah.
He recovered, but a weird thing happened in October is John Boehner resigned from the House from the
Right.
Speaker's chair and from the House of Representatives. Midterm.
Right.
Why?
Everybody asked that.
Right. But if you go to the presidency and you go under, U.S. Code Section 3, Section 3 under the U.S. Code, it talks about the presidency. And if anybody has to ascend to the presidency, remember, the Speaker of the House is third in line. So if anybody ascends to the presidency, let's say it's the Speaker of the House, he has to resign his position in the House and from the House, just like
So,
John Boehner did.
I've got another silly question. So was he acting behind the scenes, or I mean, what this is just blowing my mind. If this did go this way, what was Obama and Biden doing? Did they know that this was going on, or is this just like we were pulling a trump card on them?
Basically pulling a trump card on them. Remember, it doesn't say they have to tell anybody this is happening. So what happens? Well, a really strange thing happened with Joe Biden when he was home in Delaware in the beginning of beginning of the year of 2015. Like somebody kind of pulled a drive-by at his house out in Delaware, which is in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it took all the Secret Service agents and they left. What did they need to get from Joe Biden? The nuclear football.
Wow.
Is then you take that control back from them. Why do you invite Netanyahu in? To take away his nuclear command. They brought the Pope in that year. Then
Yeah, yeah.
the next year they brought in Modi, who's the prime minister.
What year was this again?
2015.
Oh, okay.
And then you look at 2016, they brought in Prime Minister Modi of India, who also has nuclear weapons.
Yeah, I remember that.
And what started in the beginning of 2015 from being in New England Patriots, Deflategate, right? What if Deflategate was really deflating the nuclear footballs of other countries so they couldn't launch if Trump got in?
So when Putin threw the soccer ball that supposedly had the codes to Trump, that was like when Trump was president, right?
Right.
How does that connect? Do the dots connect from all what you're saying here?
Yeah, when you look at Jimmy Carter, he did all these humanitarian efforts all over the world. But then you go to his website, the Carter Center, and you can read where he went and what he did. Well, he started this in like 96, 97. Somehow he met with Xi Jinping, the guy who leads China now, like in the early 2000s. And he goes, well, I think this guy might be the next leader of China. And then he met him again. And a couple of years later, he says, yeah, I really think this guy's going to be leading China. Then a few years later, he meets with him. He goes, yeah, this guy's now the leader of China. Then he met with Assad. And he says, I remember meeting Assad when he was a student in college. Then right around 2012 or 10, I think it was right around 10 or 12, he meets with Dmitry Medvedev, who was the president of Russia at the time. And he met at the same time in the same meeting with Vladimir Putin in a closed-door 2-hour meeting. If you're going to set all this up, you need somebody to go talk to the good leaders and get them on your side. Try and put them in positions so you have these leaders like Xi Jinping, like Putin, that want to get rid of this entire New World Order thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Jimmy Carter was doing the whole time, was setting all this up behind the scenes. Yeah.
I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 second here and bring in, we got Buckshot out there and MJ Truther. Buckshot was basically saying the flag wasn't wrinkled. Now they did a comparison, I think, to another person but it did look like, and then MJ is saying that Carter's flag was a little wrinkled, not as much as John McCain's was.
Right. Yeah. It's not going to be perfect. There's going to be little wrinkles. But if you look at John McCain's, I mean, it looks like it was buried in somebody's trunk for 20 years. It was all wrinkled. Now, when you look at Carter's, it's smooth, it's flat. There might be a few little, because you're getting it perfectly to not have any type of wrinkle. But when you see the difference, then when you see the picture, you'll see the difference that, Carter's flag was not wrinkled.
Yeah.
So, So
Wow.
all these things, and when you connect all the dots and just look at what's in the Constitution, what's in the Articles of Confederation, how does that work? And I have to roll because I'm actually going on my show in a couple of minutes. So I thought I kind of got screwed up with the Central Time, so I apologize. But this might lend a little bit of credence to how the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution, at least the framework that Jefferson wanted, was written at the same time. Remember, these documents were written 10 years apart, allegedly. So we'll go here. And so under the Articles of Confederation, it says right here, whereas the delegates of the United States of America in Congress assembled. If you read any federal law, you go to Congress, read a federal law, that's your Congress, the United States of America in Congress assembled. And it comes right from here, the preamble of the Articles of Confederation. Now, we'll go down to how do you change any of the articles? And that's right here. So Article 13, every state shall abide by the determination of the United States in Congress assembled on all questions which by this confederation are submitted to them. And the articles of this confederation shall be inviolably observed by every state, and the union shall be perpetual. What that means is you can't secede from the union. Once you're in, you can't leave. So people saying, Texas is going to be its own. No, you're in, you can't leave. That's the rule. So now the last part is, nor shall any alteration at any time hereafter be made in any of them, meaning the articles, unless such alteration be agreed to in a Congress of the United States and be afterwards confirmed by the legislatures of every state. Okay, it's a little wordy, but it said a Congress of the United States, right? That didn't exist under that terms. Remember, terms, wordings, capitalization, punctuation, it all means something. These are legal documents. What the Congress in the Articles of Confederation was the United States and Congress assembled. A Congress of the United States didn't exist at the time. But when you go to, and you guys will like this one, we go right back to the Constitution, right? And we go right to the top. And what does it say right after the preamble? The first thing, Article 1, Section 1, the legislature. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States.
Oh, wow.
Which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. So the only way you can change the articles is to do it through
Legislation.
the
The Congress.
You have to use what's in the Constitution to change the articles. Now it has to pass the House and the Senate, and then the legislature of every state, right? Now, we go down here. Amendments, right? Wait. Okay, right. Yeah. Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or in the application of legislation, 2/3 of several states shall call for a convention. In either case, shall be valid to all intents purposes as part of this Constitution, when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states, right? So, go back to the Bill of Rights. Why wasn't it included in the original document? Because the original document is under the Articles of Confederation. All right, but what were the first 10 amendments? The Bill of Rights. And it passed the House and the Senate, because they're amendments to the Constitution. And it passed 3/4 of those state legislatures, right? So they became amendments to the Constitution. But it passed unanimously by every state legislature. Therefore, not only did they become amendments to the U.S. Constitution, they became amendments to the Articles of Confederation.
Mm.
And that's where I think we're going. So, sorry, I'm going to have to jump off. This has been awesome, Janine.
Yeah.
anytime you want to have me back on, I love coming on your show. You have such great questions and thoughts, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you too. Thank you so much. And next time we'll make sure that we get this Central and Eastern time set up.
Yeah,
Thank
hey,
you.
that was my fault. And
Before you go, let everyone know where you're at, so they might want to jump over there.
Yeah, it's just Rumble. Jack Breaks Out is the show. So we talk a lot about stuff like this. For you viewers who don't jump over, just remember tomorrow, because President Carter's getting buried, the stock exchanges are closed, the commodity exchanges are closed, all the federal government's closed. Then you have this massive cold front, right? What happens on Friday? Are they going to close down a lot of things? Then what happens next week if we hit the debt ceiling? What? Yeah. So just look for closures. I'm not saying they're going to be everywhere, but just look for what's closed and why.
Okay.
And 10 days from tomorrow, so the 9th, on the 19th, Trump said, we're going to have a big celebration. He's going to have this rally before he gets inaugurated. Are they going to take care of something in these 10 days?
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
God, I love you. I just love you, Jack. Thank you so much. We all appreciate you. And I'm going to ask you to come back.
Hey,
all right.
Great. No, I'd love to. Be awesome.
Bye now.
Hey, have a great night. Thanks again, Janine.
Okay. And thank everybody for being here on YouTube. It looks like we got some new subscribers already and also out on Rumble. Good night.
Good night. Thanks, guys.